All right. Algebra 2, Lecture 3.2 and 3.3, OAS A2A23. The student will use the discriminant to determine the number and types of solutions of a quadratic equation. That's what we're going to do today. So what we're going to have to do is figure out what the discriminant is. And we'll talk about that, it's easy. And then we'll show you how to use it to determine the number and types of solutions to a quadratic equation. And here's how this works. Here's a quadratic equation in standard form where A, B, and C are going to be some real numbers. It could be like a 2, a 7, and a negative 5. They could be any real numbers, and X would be our variable in this case. The variable doesn't have to be X. It could be any letter. But in this case, the variable is X, and these are going to be real numbers, A, B, and C. The quadratic formula, which we studied last semester, the values of X that will make this true, if it's written in standard form, can be found by the opposite of B plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4AC, all of this over 2A. If we plug in these three values into this formula, it will give us the values of X that will make this equation true. What we want to do, though, is use the discriminant to determine the number of solutions this is going to give us and the types of solutions. It could give us real numbers, or if the number that under the radical is negative, that will give us imaginary numbers. We did imaginary numbers. We take the square root of a negative, and it gives you an imaginary result. So we're going to determine the number and types of solutions based on the discriminant. So we need to talk about what the discriminant is. And the discriminant is this part right here. The part under the radical is what we call the discriminant. B squared minus 4AC is the discriminant. And here's how we determine the number and types of solutions. If the discriminant of our quadratic equation is bigger than 0, that means it's positive. If the discriminant is positive, there are two real solutions. If the discriminant is equal to 0, that means you're going to have some number plus or minus 0, so it's not going to change its value, adding 0 or subtracting 0. It'll be just this number over this, and that will just be one solution. So if the discriminant is greater than 0, we have two solutions. If the discriminant is equal to 0, there's only one solution. And if the discriminant is less than 0, that means if it's negative. If the discriminant is negative, that means the solutions will be imaginary. There will be two of them, because you'll be taking the square root of a negative value, which is imaginary. So this is what we're going to be keeping in mind. If it's positive, there are two real solutions. If it's equal to 0, there's one real solution. And if it's negative, there are two imaginary solutions. And that's going to allow us to determine the number and types of solutions of a quadratic equation. Remember, a quadratic equation is any equation that has the highest value of its variable, the highest exponent in the variable is a 2. So let's take a look at this. This just says determine the number of real solutions. Well, that means if our discriminant is negative, there are 0 real solutions. If the discriminant is equal to 0, that means there's one real solution. And if there are two real solutions, if it's bigger than 0, if it's positive. So that's what it's asking us. Our answers, our choices are going to be 0, 1, or 2. It's saying how many real solutions are there. So let's take a look at this. Here's our quadratic equation. This is A, this is B, this is C. A is negative 6, B is negative 8, C is negative 2, and we're going to go B squared minus 4AC. This will give us negative 6 squared minus 4 times A. Whoops. I said B squared and I plugged in A. The reason I plugged in A is because I'm old and brain damaged. B squared is negative 8 squared. There we go. Starting out the day making mistakes. Minus 4 times 6, negative 6 rather, times C, which is negative 2. And this will give me, what is that? Positive 64, negative times negative 64. And this is negative times negative times negative, so it's going to be negative 4 times 6 times 2 is 48. And we got 64 minus 48. And since my brain is damaged this morning. I'm going to go ahead and use my calculator so I don't make silly mistakes. 16. Now, our discriminant is 16. So the discriminant is bigger than 0. 16, positive 16 is bigger than 0. Therefore, there are two real solutions. If the discriminant is positive, there are two real solutions, and that's what we were asked to determine here. Determine the number of real solutions. 2. Okay. Let's take a look at this one. Looking for the number of real solutions. So we're going to say this is A, this is B, this is C. We're going to go B squared minus 4AC. And that will give me, I almost did it again, 8 squared minus 4 times A times C. This will give me 64. Minus 4 times 8 is 32, times 2 is 64. That's a triple negative. If you did all this with your calculator, hopefully you would get 0. That's what I got in my head. I'm going to go ahead and do it with the calculator just to make sure, because it's early. Zero, yay! Okay, and that means if our discriminant is 0, there's one real solution. That's what we're asked to determine. It says determine the number of real solutions. So there's only one because the discriminant is 0. One real solution. Take a look at another one. Here's A, B, C. We're going to look at B squared minus 4AC and see if it's positive, 0, or negative. B squared is going to be 8 squared minus 4 times A times C. And this is going to be 64 minus times negative times negative times negative is negative. That's 16 times 8, which I think is 128. 16 times 8. Yeah, 128. I don't have to do this arithmetic. I can see it's negative 64, but the fact that it's negative is all that matters, and if the discriminant is negative, that means there are no real solutions. These solutions are imaginary. So there are 0 real solutions or no real solutions. There are none, because the discriminant is the discriminant is negative, and if you take the square root, that's the discriminant. If you take the square root of a negative, it takes us into the realm of the imaginary numbers. So there are no real solutions here. And let's do another one here. This is A is, if you can't see it, it's an implied 1, and that minus sign means that A is negative 1. B is negative 4. C is positive 3. So we're going to go B squared minus 4AC, that's the discriminant. And B squared is negative 1, so I'm going to put it in parentheses. So when I square it, it'll say, your calculator will go negative 1 times negative 1. Notice when it was positive, I didn't bother putting it in parentheses. But when it's negative, I put it in parentheses. Negative 8 squared. Okay. And I did it again. I'm putting A in here for B. I don't know why I'm doing that, other than the fact that it's very early. So don't make that mistake that I'm making. This B squared will be negative 4 squared. B is negative 4. Minus 4 times A, negative 1, times C, which is 3. This will give me 16 Negative 4 times negative 4 is positive 16. Negative times negative is positive, and that'll be plus, and that's 12. That'll give me 38, but the thing is, it's positive. This is bigger than 0, so there are two real solutions. If I haven't made any mistakes. And I may have, because I've been making mistakes all morning, so it wouldn't surprise me if I'm making mistakes right now. Let's take a look here and see if I've made any. Put negative 8 there, put positive 8 there. Yay, so far so good. Positive 8, negative 4, yay. And yay, I think I've got them all right. I guess I could check my answer. Let's see. It says 2, 1, none, and 1. Why do I have, did I copy it down wrong? I did. It was a different problem. Wait a minute. Oh, look what I did. Oh my goodness. This is all garbage for one reason. Take a look at these three. Set equal to 0, set equal to 0, set equal to 0. That's standard form. This one isn't set equal to 0, so I have to turn this into a 0. So watch out for that. Don't do what I just did. Okay? Get rid of these for the time being and subtract 7 from both sides. And now it's set equal to 0. Negative x squared minus 4x minus 4 is equal to 0. Now it's in standard form, and I can identify my a, b, and c. A, there's an implied 1 here, so a is negative 1, b is negative 4, and c is also negative 4. So we're going to go the opposite of b, which is 4, b squared rather, b squared, which is negative 4 squared, minus 4 times a times c. Okay. Well, this gives us 16. Negative 4 times negative 4. Negative times negative times negative is negative. There are 3 minus signs, and if you're multiplying, that will make your product negative. 4 times 1 times 4 is 16, so it'll be negative 16. That gives me 0. And if the discriminant is 0, that means that there is one real solution, which I believe is what the key said. One real solution. Sorry about that. You gotta watch out for those. They snuck one in there on me. Make sure that that puppy is in standard form, or you can't use the quadratic formula. We can't use the quadratic formula until we're in this form right here, where the quadratic equation is set equal to 0 on one side. And this one was set equal to 7. So I had to set it equal to 0 by subtracting 7. And I had to subtract 7 from this side. Then we did b squared minus 4ac. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Let's take a look at what we'll be doing next. Find the discriminant, that's what we were just doing, b squared minus 4ac of each quadratic equation, then state the number and types. So by types it means, are they real or imaginary? So will there be 2 real solutions, 1 real solution, or 2 imaginary solutions? That's where our answers are going to be. Okay? Here we were just saying how many real solutions are there. Okay. Here we're asking for the number of solutions and the type. Here we go. It's very similar to what we just did. Let's take a look at it. Set equal to 0. I'm going to check that first every time now. A, B. See, I should have been checking that first every time all along. So I'm going to say b squared minus 4ac. That's my discriminant. B squared will be 7 squared minus 4 times A, which is 2, times C, which is 5. That will give me 49 minus 40. 4 times 2 times 5 is 40. That's a positive 9. That means because this is bigger than 0, it's positive. The discriminant is bigger than 0, it's positive. There are 2 real solutions. That's the number of solutions and the type of solution. 2 real solutions. Okay. Here we got set equal to 0. A is 2, B is 4, C is 2, B squared minus 4AC will yield 4 squared minus 4 times 2 times 2. B squared minus 4 times A times C. And when we perform our arithmetic, that's 16 minus 4 times 2 times 2 is 16. That's 0. Well, if the discriminant is 0, there's 1 real solution. If the discriminant is exactly equal to 0, there's 1 real solution, so that's what we're going to write. 1 real solution. Yay! I sure hope I'm not making a wrong mistake. Let's see if I made a mistake here. I didn't. Yay! Alright, let's take a look at this one, this last one. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to figure out what the discriminant is. B squared minus 4AC. It's set equal to 0, so we're ready to go. B squared will be 4 squared minus 4 times A is negative 9 times C is also negative 9. This will give me 16. Negative 4 times negative 9 times negative 9 is going to be negative. Negative times negative times negative. That's if you're multiplying and you have an odd number of negatives, your product is going to be negative. So that will be 4 times 9 times 9, negative 324. And if I say 16 minus 324, that will give me negative 308. And because my discriminant is less than 0, negative 308 is less than 0. That means there are 2 imaginary solutions. Because we would be taking the square root of a negative value, which puts us in the realm of the imaginary. Imaginary. And that's what we're doing today. Alright. So now let me check and see if I've made a mistake. Number 5, 2 real solutions. Number 6, 0 real solutions. There should be 1 real solution. Or I made it messed up. Oh, I'm looking for the wrong one. 0, 1 real solution. Yay, that's correct. I was scratching my head over that one. I was thinking, what's wrong there? It was correct. And number 7 is negative 308, 2 imaginary solutions. Let me run through that again. 2 real solutions because the discriminant was 9. The discriminant here was 0, so there's 1 real solution. The discriminant here was negative 308, so there were 2 imaginary solutions. So this is actually, the discriminant is part of the answer. Forgot to block those in. Because it asked us for the discriminant as well in the instructions. So find the discriminant and state the number of real solutions. So there you go, B squared minus 4AC. Don't make the mistake that I made. Make sure that the 2 mistakes I made on this were, make sure that it's the right side is set equal to 0. If it isn't, just whatever this is, do the arithmetic necessary to turn it into 0 on both sides. And the other thing I did a couple times for some reason was B squared minus 4AC. I was plugging A in for B, which is brain damage, but that's what I was doing. But you can do this.